Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance, watching Earth turn slowly below him. The blue and green planet looked peaceful in the morning light. Ships moved between the orbital stations like busy insects. It was a good day to be human. 3 months had passed since the Galactic Council accepted humanity as a member species. Jake remembered the celebration parties on every human world. Children drew pictures of alien friends they hoped to meet. Scientists planned research trips to distant stars. Everyone believed the future looked bright. Dr. Lisa Kane called Jake from Luna Station. Her face appeared on the main screen looking excited. She had been working with alien scientists for weeks now. The Zolonians taught her about energy shields. The Kreks showed her new metal alloys. Even the ancient Vorthak shared some of their old knowledge. "Jake, you should see what we learned today," Lisa said with a big smile. "The Vorthak have medical technology that could help us live twice as long. They want to share it with us." Jake smiled back. "That sounds amazing, Lisa. How are the other aliens treating our people?" "Very well. They seem genuinely happy to have us join them. Commander Phillips visited yesterday from the defense stations. He says the alien ships have been very friendly during patrol duties. Ryan Phillips commanded the orbital defense platforms around Earth. His job was to watch for threats from space. For months now, alien council ships had been coming and going freely. They always followed proper procedures and seemed respectful of human space. Jake felt proud of how far humanity had come. Just 50 years ago, humans could barely reach their own moon. Now they had colonies on dozens of worlds and ships that could travel between stars. The aliens seemed impressed by how quickly humans learned new technology. Captain Amy Foster was exploring the outer system aboard the UES Explorer when the first warning came. Her science officer detected unusual energy readings from the edge of Earth's solar system. Multiple ships had just dropped out of faster-than-light travel. "Captain, I count at least 200 ships," her officer reported. "They are not broadcasting identification signals." Amy felt worried. No one had told her about any large fleet movements today. She tried to contact Admiral Morrison but got no response. The communication channels seemed jammed. At the defense stations, Commander Phillips noticed the same thing. His screens showed a massive fleet approaching Earth. The ships looked like council vessels, but something felt wrong. They moved in attack formation, and their weapons were powered up. Phillips tried to contact the lead ship. "Unknown fleet. This is Earth Defense Command. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions." The response came not in words, but in action. The Council fleet opened fire on the orbital stations with devastating energy beams. Phillips watched in horror as Defense Station 7 exploded in a ball of fire. Hundreds of his people died in seconds. "All stations, this is not a drill," Phillips broadcast on emergency channels. "We are under attack. Repeat, we are under attack." Jake Morrison felt the Vengeance shake as enemy fire hit the hull. His bridge crew scrambled to their battle stations. The main screen showed the terrible truth. The aliens they had trusted were trying to kill them all. "Sir, they are targeting the civilian areas," his weapons officer reported with a shaking voice. "They are not trying to capture anything. They want to destroy everything." Jake watched nuclear fire bloom across Earth's surface. New York vanished in a flash of light. London disappeared seconds later. The aliens were not just attacking military targets, they were murdering everyone they could find. "Return fire," Jake ordered. "Protect the evacuation ships." But there were too many enemy ships and too few human defenders. The Council fleet had planned this attack carefully. They knew exactly where every human ship and station would be. They had betrayed humanity completely. Dr. Kane tried to escape Luna Station as it came under attack. She helped load research data onto emergency pods while explosions shook the station. Through the window, she could see Earth burning below. The planet that had been her home was dying. "Doctor, we have to go now," her assistant shouted over the noise. "The station is breaking apart." Lisa grabbed the last data pod and ran for the escape ships. Behind her, everything she had worked for was being destroyed. All the peaceful cooperation with alien scientists had been a lie. Captain Foster received Jake Morrison's final transmission as Earth's communication networks failed. His voice was calm, but she could hear the pain in it. "To all human ships and stations, Earth has fallen. The Galactic Council has betrayed us. 8 billion of our people are dead or dying. We are all that remains of humanity. Do not surrender. Do not give up. We will remember what they did here today." The transmission ended in static. Foster stared at the screen, knowing she might never hear Jake's voice again. Around Earth, the last defense ships were falling one by one. The great human homeworld was becoming a graveyard. In just 6 hours, the Galactic Council had reduced humanity from a proud spacefaring species to scattered refugees. 500,000 humans survived on ships and distant stations. 8 billion lay dead on a burning world. The aliens had made a terrible mistake, though. They thought they were ending a threat. Instead, they had created something much more dangerous. They had given the survivors nothing left to lose. 3 months after Earth burned, the surviving humans were still running. Chief Engineer Danny Sullivan led a convoy of 17 civilian ships through empty space. 30,000 refugees crowded into vessels never meant for long voyages. Food was running low, and people were getting sick. Danny studied the star charts on his bridge screen. They needed a safe place to hide and repair their ships. The Council patrols were everywhere now, hunting down the last humans. Every day brought new reports of captured ships and executed crews. "Sir, we are getting a coded transmission," his communication officer reported. "It's from Admiral Morrison." Danny felt relief wash over him. Jake Morrison was still alive. The Admiral's message was short but clear. All human survivors should meet at coordinates in the Kepler Nebula. The dense gas clouds there would hide them from alien sensors. Colonel Kate Barnes received the same message aboard her damaged battlecruiser UES Retribution. Her ship had fought its way out of the Earth system, but paid a heavy price. Half her crew was dead and her weapons were barely working. Still, she was one of the few military commanders left alive. Kate looked at her remaining officers. They were young and scared, but they had not given up hope. "Set course for the nebula," she ordered. "It's time to see what's left of humanity." The trip to Kepler took 2 weeks. Human ships arrived from across the galaxy, all flying dark to avoid detection. Kate was amazed to see how many had survived. Mining ships from the asteroid belt, research vessels from distant stars, even some passenger liners that had been traveling between colonies. Admiral Morrison had set up a temporary base inside the nebula using 3 large cargo ships. The gas clouds made communication difficult, but they also made the human fleet invisible to Council sensors. Jake looked older when Kate met him in person. The weight of Earth's destruction showed in his eyes. "How many made it out?" Kate asked during their first meeting. "About 500,000, Jake replied. "Scattered across 200 ships, most are civilians with no military training." Dr. Lisa Kane had arrived 2 days earlier aboard a damaged research ship. She brought disturbing news about the aliens' plans. "I managed to intercept some Council transmissions before we escaped," she told the gathered commanders. "They are calling us a virus that needed to be removed. They plan to hunt down every last human." Jake nodded grimly. "Then we need to be ready for them." "Danny, what's our supply situation?" Chief Sullivan pulled up his reports. "Not good, sir. We have food for maybe 6 months if we ration carefully. Fuel for the ships is even worse, and we can't exactly dock at alien stations anymore." "What about weapons?" Colonel Barnes asked. "That's where we might have some hope," Jake said. "Before the attack, our shipyards were working on a secret project. Project Dreadnought. 5 massive warships with experimental weapons systems, Captain Amy Foster had just arrived from a scouting mission. Her ship UES Explorer was one of the fastest in the fleet. "I've been checking the outer shipyards," she reported. 3 of the Dreadnoughts were destroyed, but 2 survived. They're hidden in the Titan shipyard beyond Neptune. Lisa Kane felt excited for the first time in months. If we can complete those ships, we might have a chance. The aliens underestimate human technology. They think nuclear weapons are primitive. Jake called a meeting of all ship captains that evening. The cargo bay was packed with tired faces. These people had lost everything, but they still looked to him for leadership. He knew he could not let them down. "My friends," Jake began, "the Council thinks they have destroyed us. They believe humans are finished. They are wrong." The crowd grew quiet, listening to every word. "We are going to show them what humans do," when backed into a corner. "We are going to complete those Dreadnoughts. We are going to build a fleet. And we are going to make them pay for what they did to Earth." Someone in the crowd shouted, "How can we fight the whole galaxy?" Jake smiled, for the first time since Earth's fall. "Because we have something they don't understand. We have nothing left to lose." Over the following weeks, the human survivors began to organize. Danny Sullivan led teams to salvage parts from damaged ships. Kate Barnes trained civilians in basics combat skills. Amy Foster scouted for resources and safe hiding spots. Dr. Kane made an important discovery while studying captured alien technology. "Their shields are designed to stop energy weapons," she explained to Jake. "But our kinetic weapons and nuclear missiles cut right through them. They've never fought an enemy like us." The humans also learned they were not entirely alone. "Captain." Foster made contact with some alien species who secretly opposed the Council. The insect-like Vexhi had been enslaved for centuries. The crystal beings called Netheron were forced to mine rare metals for their conquerors. "They hate the Council as much as we do," Amy reported. "But they're too afraid to fight openly. If we could prove the Council can be beaten, we might gain allies." Jake saw the opportunity. "Then that's what we'll do. We'll hit them where it hurts and show the galaxy that the Council can bleed." The plan was dangerous but simple. Small human ships would attack Council supply convoys while the main fleet prepared for larger strikes. Every victory would prove that humanity was still fighting. Trevor Hill, a weapons specialist, worked with Lisa Kane to modify their remaining weapons. They stripped nuclear warheads from damaged ships and built new delivery systems. If the aliens wanted to see primitive human weapons, they would get their wish. By the end of the month, the hidden human base in Kepler Nebula buzzed with activity. Ships were being repaired and modified. Weapons were being built and tested. Most importantly, hope was returning to human hearts. Jake Morrison stood in his makeshift command center, watching his people work. They had started as refugees running for their lives. Now they were becoming something else, something the Galactic Council would learn to fear. The time for hiding was almost over. Soon humanity would remind the galaxy why they had been afraid of humans in the first place. Captain Nick Turner stood on the bridge of humanity's first completed dreadnought. The UES Apocalypse was 3 times larger than any previous human warship. Its hull bristled with nuclear missile launchers and massive railguns. After 6 months of desperate work, the great ship was finally ready for battle. "All systems green, Captain," his weapons officer reported. "Nuclear arsenal loaded and targeting systems online." Nick felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. This ship represented humanity's hope for revenge. Every rivet and wire had been installed by refugees who had lost their families on Earth. He would not let them down. Admiral Morrison's voice came over the communication system. "Apocalypse, you are cleared for Operation Payback. Hit them hard and come home safely." The target was the Zolonian fleet yards at Proxima 7. Intelligence gathered by Captain Foster showed dozens of Council warships under construction there. Destroying them would hurt the enemy's ability to replace their losses. Nick took the great ship out of the nebula and engaged the faster-than-light drive. The journey to Proxima would take 3 days. 3 days to prepare for humanity's first major strike against the Galactic Council. Meanwhile, Commander Ryan Phillips was preparing his own mission. He led a team of 20 volunteers aboard 3 captured alien ships. They had spent weeks learning to operate the strange controls and speak basic alien languages. "Remember," Phillips told his people, "we are Vorthak traders carrying mining equipment. Keep your helmets on and speak as little as possible. If anyone discovers we are human, fight your way out." The plan was simple but deadly. Phillips and his teams would plant nuclear devices aboard major council ships and space stations. The bombs would explode simultaneously across 12 star systems, causing maximum confusion and terror. Dr. Lisa Kane had designed the special bombs herself. They were small enough to hide, but powerful enough to destroy entire space stations. More importantly, they would send a message. Humans could strike anywhere, anytime. The apocalypse reached Proxima 7 first. Nick Turner watched the alien shipyards grow larger on his main screen. Hundreds of ships moved between the construction platforms like ants around their nest. They had no idea death was coming. "Begin the attack," Nick ordered. The Dreadnoughts' nuclear missiles streaked across space like falling stars. Each one carried enough explosive power to level a city. The aliens' energy shields flickered and died as the weapons struck home. Their technology was useless against raw nuclear fury. "Direct hit on the main platform," the weapons officer shouted. "Secondary explosions detected. The entire structure is breaking apart." Nick watched alien ships scramble to respond to his attack. Their energy beams struck the apocalypse's thick armor and bounced off harmlessly. Human engineering had built this ship to take punishment and keep fighting. "Return fire with the railguns," Nick commanded. The massive magnetic cannons hurled metal projectiles at incredible speed. Each shot hit with the force of a small nuclear bomb. Alien warships crumpled like paper toys. In 20 minutes, Nick had destroyed more enemy vessels than all previous human attacks combined. At the same moment, Phillips and his sabotage teams were striking across the galaxy. The nuclear devices hidden in council ships and stations exploded, exactly on schedule. Military bases, supply depots, and command centers vanished in balls of atomic fire. The psychological impact was devastating. Council commanders realized that humans had infiltrated their most secure facilities. The aliens began to suspect their own allies and crew members. Fear spread through their ranks like poison. Admiral Morrison watched the reports come in from the hidden base in Kepler Nebula. Every target had been hit successfully. The human fleet had struck 12 different locations without losing a single ship or person. "Sir, we are receiving transmissions from Council emergency channels," his communication officer reported. "They are calling for all available ships to hunt us down." Jake smiled grimly. "Let them come. Colonel Barnes, is your strike force ready?" Kate Barnes commanded 15 modified human ships equipped with Dr. Kane's new stealth technology. The EI ghost drives allowed them to phase partially out of normal space, making them nearly impossible to detect or target. "Ready and waiting, Admiral," Kate replied. "My people are eager for payback." "Then show them what human guerrilla warfare looks like." Kate's ships struck like ghosts in the night. They would appear from nowhere, destroy their targets, and vanish before the enemy could respond. Council supply convoys began disappearing without a trace. Patrol ships were found drifting in space with their crews dead and their cargo stolen. The Galactic Council had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. Through fear and overwhelming force, they had never faced an enemy that refused to fight by their rules. Humans hit and ran, used deception and trickery, struck at civilians and military targets alike. Captain Foster brought back intelligence from her scouting missions that shocked everyone. "The Council is starting to recall ships from their outer territories," she reported. Some of their member species are beginning to question their leadership. Dr. Kane had been analyzing captured alien communications. It gets better, she added. The Vex-High have started sabotaging mining operations. The Netheron are refusing to deliver crystal shipments. Our attacks are inspiring other species to resist. Jake felt hope growing in his chest. Then we need to keep the pressure on. Trevor, how many more nuclear devices can you build? Weapons. Specialist Trevor Hill looked up from his work table. With the materials we captured from the last raid, maybe 50 more bombs. But I have a better idea. Trevor explained his new weapon design. Instead of hiding small bombs on enemy ships, they could build larger devices and place them on asteroids. The radioactive rocks could then be launched at Council worlds using simple rocket motors. The beauty is, they look like natural meteors until they hit the atmosphere, Trevor said with a vicious grin. By then, it's too late to stop them. The plan was approved immediately. Human mining ships began hollowing out asteroids and filling them with nuclear explosives. Within weeks, radioactive meteors would start falling on Council worlds like gifts from an angry god. But the aliens were not sitting idle. A massive Council fleet was assembling at their capital world of Centrum Prime. Intelligence reports suggested they were planning a final assault to wipe out the human survivors once and for all. Jake called together his senior commanders for an emergency meeting. They're coming for us with everything they have, he announced. 800 ships, including their newest Dreadnoughts. The room fell silent. Even with their recent victories, the humans only had about 50 combat-capable ships. The odds were impossible. Sir, Colonel Barnes spoke up, maybe it's time to run. We could take the civilian ships and head for empty space beyond the galaxy. Jake shook his head. No more running. They murdered our families, burned our world, and hunted us like animals. If they want to finish this fight, we'll give them one they'll never forget. Nick Turner's voice came from the communication screen. The apocalypse was returning from another successful raid against Council positions. Admiral, request permission to lead the fleet into battle when they come. Granted, Captain, but I want you to know this might be our last fight. Nick's scarred face showed no fear. Then we'll make it count, sir. For Earth. For everyone we lost. The human survivors began preparing for what might be their final battle. Every ship was armed with the deadliest weapons they could build. Every person trained for combat. They would not go down easily. The Council fleet found the human base in Kepler Nebula 3 weeks later. Admiral Morrison watched 800 alien warships drop out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the gas clouds. The massive force included their newest battleships and planet-killer weapons. They had come to finish what they started at Earth. All ships, this is Admiral Morrison, Jake broadcast to his tiny fleet. Today we make our stand. Remember what they took from us. Remember who we fight for. 50 human ships faced overwhelming odds. But Jake had spent months preparing for this moment. The nebula itself had been turned into a weapon, hidden throughout. The gas clouds were thousands of nuclear mines and kinetic torpedoes. The aliens were flying into a carefully prepared trap. Captain Nick Turner brought the UES Apocalypse to the front of the human formation. His massive dreadnought bristled with every weapon humanity could build. "Weapons hot and ready, Admiral," he reported. "All ships report ready for battle." The Council commander sent a final surrender demand. "Humans, you are outnumbered and outgunned. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick." Jake's response was simple. "Come and take us." The battle began with a wave of nuclear fire from the human fleet. Hundreds of missiles streaked through space toward the alien formation. The Council ships activated their energy shields, confident their technology would protect them. They were wrong. The nuclear warheads punched through alien defenses like they were made of paper. 12 Council ships died in the first salvo. The survivors charged forward in rage, their energy weapons lighting up the nebula with deadly beams. But the humans had more surprises waiting. As the alien fleet moved deeper into the gas clouds, the hidden mines began exploding around them. Each blast sent radioactive fire through their hulls. The careful council formation broke apart in confusion and terror. Colonel Kate Barnes led, her ghost ships in hit-and-run attacks from all directions. Her vessels would appear from nowhere, fire their weapons, and vanish before the aliens could respond. The enemy never knew where the next attack would come from. Barnes to all ships, Kate broadcast. "Keep moving and keep hitting them. Don't let them reorganize." Dr. Lisa Kane had positioned herself aboard a sensor ship in the center of the human formation. Her job was to coordinate the battle and watch for alien reinforcements. What she saw on her screens amazed her. "Admiral, the alien formation is falling apart," she reported. "They're shooting at each other in the confusion. Some ships are trying to retreat." Jake felt satisfaction deep in his chest. The mighty Galactic Council was learning what it meant to fight humans on equal terms. But he knew the real test was still coming. The alien fleet still outnumbered them badly. The Council commander realized his mistake and tried to pull his ships back to open space. That was when the second part of Jake's plan activated. Human ships hidden outside the nebula attacked the alien rear guard. The aliens found themselves trapped between two forces with nowhere to run. Captain Amy Foster led this outer attack force with deadly precision. Her modified ships carried the most powerful weapons the humans had built. "All ships, target their command vessels," she ordered. "Cut off the head, and the body will die." The alien flagship tried to escape the trap but found its path blocked by the UES Apocalypse. Nick Turner brought his great ship alongside the enemy vessel and opened fire at point-blank range. His nuclear missiles tore huge holes in the alien hull. "This is for Earth!" Nick shouted as his weapons fired again and again. The alien commander's ship exploded in a ball of fire that lit up the entire nebula. Seeing their leader die, many council ships began to surrender or flee. The mighty fleet that had come to destroy humanity was breaking apart. But victory came at a terrible price. The UES Apocalypse had taken heavy damage in the close fight with the flagship. Nick Turner's voice came over the communication channel, weak but determined. "Admiral, my ship is dying," he reported. "Reactor is going critical and life support is failing. But I can take a few more of them with me." Jake felt his heart break. Nick had been one of his best captains and a good friend. "Nick, evacuate your crew. We can pick you up." "No time, sir. The aliens are regrouping for another attack. Someone needs to break their formation." Nick Turner turned his dying ship toward the center of the remaining alien fleet. The great Dreadnought accelerated on its final mission, its nuclear reactor, overloading and its weapons firing until the very end. The explosion when the Apocalypse died was visible from 3 star systems away. The massive ship took 50 alien vessels with it in a blast of nuclear fire. Nick Turner had given his life to save the human survivors. The Battle of Kepler Nebula was over. Of 800 council ships, less than 200 escaped. The humans had lost only 12 vessels, but those losses included irreplaceable ships and crews. Jake stood in his command center, surrounded by the wreckage of both fleets. They had won an impossible victory, but the cost was almost too much to bear. Still, they had proven something important. The Galactic Council could be beaten. "Sir, we are receiving transmissions from across the galaxy," his communication officer reported. "Multiple species are declaring independence from the Council. The Vex-High have seized their home system. The Netheron have destroyed 3 Council bases." Dr. Kane looked up from her analysis screens with excitement. "Jake, this is better than we hoped. The battle has triggered a galactic revolution. Dozens of species are rising up against their oppressors." Captain Foster returned from pursuit of the fleeing aliens with more good news. "We captured several council officers, including Councilor Zethmok. He was commanding one of the battleships that surrendered." Jake felt a new plan forming in his mind. The military victory was just the beginning. Now they needed to win the political war for the hearts and minds of the galaxy. "Bring the prisoners to the main ship," he ordered. "It's Time to learn some secrets. The interrogation of Counselor Zethmok revealed shocking truths about the alien government. The decision to destroy Earth had been made by only 3 council members in a secret meeting. Many alien species had been horrified by the genocide, but were too afraid to speak out. Interrogation specialist Greg Adams worked carefully to extract information from the captured alien. "He's telling the truth," Greg reported. "Most of the Council's own people didn't know about the plan to attack Earth." Jake saw his opportunity. If he could expose the truth about Earth's destruction, he might turn the entire galaxy against the Council's leadership. But first, he needed to deal with the immediate threat. Reports came in that the Council was assembling another fleet at their capital world of Centrum Prime. This time they were calling in ships from across the galaxy. Every species loyal to them was being forced to contribute vessels and crews. "They're planning to hit us with everything they have," Colonel Barnes warned. "Intelligence suggests over 1,000 ships this time." Jake nodded grimly. "Then we better make sure they never get the chance to use them. Amy, prepare Operation Reckoning. It's time to take this fight to their home." The human survivors had started as refugees running for their lives. Now they were leading a galactic rebellion against tyranny. The Council had made humanity into something far more dangerous than they ever imagined. The hunters had become the hunted, and the prey was about to bite back with nuclear teeth. Admiral Morrison stood before a massive holographic display showing the entire galaxy. Red dots marked Council strongholds, while green dots showed worlds in rebellion. The uprising triggered by humanity's victory at Kepler Nebula was spreading, faster than anyone had imagined. "The Netheron Collective has officially joined our alliance," Captain Foster reported from her intelligence station. "That gives us control of the crystal mines in the Outer Rim. The Council's ship production will slow to a crawl without those materials." Dr. Lisa Kane worked frantically at her research station. She had been developing new weapons specifically designed to fight each alien species. "The sonic disruptors are ready for deployment against Zolonian ships," she announced. "Their crystalline bones can't handle the frequency vibrations." Chief Engineer Danny Sullivan had been modifying the human fleet with captured alien technology. "We now have 47 combat ships ready for the assault on Centrum Prime," he reported. "Each one carries enough firepower to level a city." But Jake knew they needed more than military strength to win this war. The captured Council records revealed the locations of secret prisons where the aliens held political prisoners from dozens of species. Freeing these captives would provide both allies and propaganda value. "Colonel Barnes, I want you to lead strike teams to liberate the prison worlds," Jake ordered. "Every species that sees their people freed will turn against the Council." Kate. Barnes studied the target list on her tactical display. "The Rigel prison complex holds over 50,000 political prisoners. If we can break them out, it will send shockwaves across the galaxy." Meanwhile, Commander Alex Murphy was preparing for the most dangerous mission of all. Intelligence suggested that the Council's superfortress defended Centrum Prime with weapons that could destroy entire fleets. Someone would need to get inside and disable those defenses. "My team will infiltrate the fortress using captured alien identities," Alex explained during the mission briefing. "Once inside, we plant nuclear charges on the main power systems. The fortress dies, and your fleet can attack the capital." Jake felt the weight of command pressing down on his shoulders. Every decision he made would determine whether humanity survived or died. The plan was ambitious beyond belief, but they had no choice. The Council was gathering a massive fleet that would crush the rebellion if allowed to launch. The first phase of Operation Reckoning began with Kate Barnes leading simultaneous attacks on 12 prison worlds. Her ghost ships struck without warning, appearing from nowhere to shatter the alien guards' defenses. "Prison 7 is secure," Kate reported as her troops freed thousands of Vex-High political prisoners. "The inmates are eager to join our fight. Many of them are former military officers." Similar reports came in from across the galaxy. Human strike teams worked alongside freed prisoners to capture council installations and liberate more worlds. Each victory brought new allies to the growing rebellion. Dr. Kane's special weapons proved devastatingly effective against different alien species. The sonic disruptors shattered Zolonian ships like glass. Quantum scramblers turned Vorthak energy beings into harmless static. The humans had learned to fight each enemy on their own terms. But the main assault on Centrum Prime would require everything humanity had learned about warfare. The Council's capital world was defended by massive orbital fortresses, energy barriers, and a fleet of their most advanced warships. Commander Murphy's infiltration team reached Centrum Prime first. Using stolen alien identities and captured ships, they slipped past the outer defenses and docked with the super fortress. The installation was the size of a small moon and bristled with weapons that could destroy planets. "Security is tight, but we're moving toward the power core," Alex reported in a whispered transmission. "The aliens have no idea we're here." While Alex planted his nuclear charges, the main human fleet gathered at the edge of the Centrum system. Jake looked at his assembled ships and felt pride despite their desperate situation. Every vessel showed battle damage from months of fighting, but they had never given up. "All ships, this is Admiral Morrison," he broadcast. "Today we strike at the heart of the Council's power. Today we show the galaxy that tyrants can fall. Today we finish what they started at Earth." The human fleet dropped out of faster than light travel simultaneously, appearing throughout the Centrum system like avenging angels. The Council's defense fleet scrambled to respond but found themselves facing enemies who fought like no one they had ever encountered. Captain Foster led the first wave, her ships diving straight at the orbital fortresses with reckless courage. Human pilots flew their vessels into point-blank range before firing, accepting terrible damage to ensure their shots found their targets. "Direct hit on Fortress Alpha," Foster reported as nuclear fire bloomed across the station's hull. "Secondary explosions detected. The installation is breaking apart." But the Council's superfortress still dominated the battlefield with its massive weapons. Energy beams the size of mountains reached out to swat human ships from space. Jake watched helplessly as 3 of his vessels died in seconds. Then Alex Murphy's voice crackled over the communication channel. "Charges are set, Admiral. Get your people clear of the fortress." The explosion that followed lit up half the star system. The superfortress died in a ball of nuclear fire that took 50 Council ships with it. Alex Murphy and his brave team had given their lives to open the path to victory. With their main defense gone, the Council fleet found itself facing the full fury of human revenge. Ships armed with every weapon humanity could build tore through alien formations like wolves. Among sheep, the advanced Council technology meant nothing against raw human determination. The battle raged for 6 hours. When it ended, Centrum Prime lay defenseless before the human fleet. The capital world of the Galactic Council had fallen to the species they had tried to exterminate. Jake stood on his bridge watching alien surrender signals fill his communication screens. Hundreds of Council ships were giving up rather than face more human weapons. The mighty government that had ruled the galaxy for millennia was crumbling before his eyes. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the Council leadership," his communication officer reported. "They want to discuss surrender terms." Jake's smile was cold as winter space. "Tell them we'll discuss terms after they explain why they murdered 8 billion innocent people." But victory in battle was only half the war. The real challenge would be building something better from the ashes of the old order. Jake looked at his exhausted crew and wondered if humanity was ready for the responsibility of galactic leadership. Dr. Kane approached with a datapad full of intelligence reports. "Jake, we've captured the Council's complete archives. The evidence of their crimes goes back thousands of years. Entire species enslaved, worlds strip-mined to barren rock, billions killed for opposing their rule. Then we make sure everyone sees it," Jake replied. "The galaxy needs to know what kind of monsters they've been serving." Colonel Barnes contacted him from the surface of Centrum Prime. Admiral, we've secured the government buildings. The remaining council members are in custody. What are your orders? Jake thought about Nick Turner and Alex Murphy and all the other humans who had died to reach this moment. They deserve justice, not just revenge. Prepare them for trial, he ordered. The galaxy will judge them for their crimes. And Kate, make sure the trials are broadcast to every world. Let everyone see that tyrants can fall. The war was ending, but humanity's greatest challenge was just beginning. They had destroyed the old order through force of arms. Now they would have to build a new one through wisdom and justice. Jake Morrison had started as a fleet admiral defending Earth. Now he found himself reluctantly becoming the leader of a galactic revolution. The responsibility was terrifying. But someone had to ensure that nothing like the Council's genocide ever happened again. The trial of the century began 6 months after the fall of Centrum Prime. Representatives from 300 species gathered in the Great Assembly Hall that had once housed the Galactic Council. Now it would serve as a court of justice for their crimes. Prosecutor Helen Davis stood before the massive audience with evidence that would shock the galaxy. She had spent months reviewing the Council's secret archives with Dr. Lisa Kane. What they found was worse than anyone had imagined. For over 2,000 years, the Galactic Council has ruled through fear, oppression, and murder. Helen began her opening statement. The destruction of Earth was not an isolated incident. It was part of a pattern of genocide that spans millennia. The main defendants sat in specially designed containment fields. Prime Counselor Varthek, the architect of Earth's destruction, showed no emotion as Helen displayed evidence of his crimes. Beside him sat the other surviving council leaders, each responsible for countless atrocities. Admiral Morrison watched from the gallery as Helen presented her case. The evidence was overwhelming. Entire species had been enslaved or exterminated for daring to oppose council rule. Planets had been strip-mined until they became lifeless rocks. Billions had died to feed the aliens' hunger for power. The defendant, Varthek, personally ordered the sterilization of the Aklon homeworld, Helen continued, showing holographic images of the dead planet. 6 billion sentient beings died because their government refused to surrender their mineral rights. Dr. Kane testified about the scientific evidence found in council archives. They kept detailed records of every genocide, she explained to the court. Population counts, resource calculations, even efficiency ratings for their extermination methods. To them, murder was simply another administrative task. The testimony of freed prisoners provided the most emotional moments of the trial. Former council captives from dozens of species told their stories of torture, slavery, and watching their families die. Many could barely speak through their tears. A Vex-High survivor named Clicktar described the forced labor camps on his homeworld. They worked us 20 hours each day in the crystal mines. Anyone who collapsed was shot and fed to the others. My children lasted 3 months before they died of exhaustion. Jake found it hard to listen to such horrors, but he forced himself to hear every word. The galaxy needed to understand what the Council had really been. Only then could they build something better to replace it. The defense lawyers argued that the Council had maintained galactic peace and order. They claimed their harsh methods were necessary to prevent chaos and war between species. Few in the audience seemed convinced by these arguments. Colonel Kate Barnes testified about the battle records her forces had captured. The Council maintained detailed plans for the extermination of 47 different species, she told the court. Humanity was just next on their list. Captain Amy Foster provided intelligence about Council operations across the galaxy. They had secret police on every world, concentration camps in hidden systems, and mobile execution squads that could eliminate entire populations without warning. The most damaging testimony came from former Council officials who had turned against their leaders. These aliens revealed the inner workings of the government and the casual way they discussed mass murder in their meetings. Varthek once told us that inferior species were like weeds in a garden, testified former sub-counselor Hexmoth. He said they needed to be pulled out regularly to keep the galaxy healthy. As the trial progressed, Admiral Morrison worked with other rebel leaders to plan the new government they would create. The old council system of rule by force would be replaced with something based on cooperation and mutual respect. We need a federation where every species has an equal voice, Jake argued during planning sessions. No one group should have the power to dominate others. Chief Engineer Danny Sullivan had been working on practical matters like trade routes and resource distribution. The Council's economic system was designed to exploit weaker species, he reported. We'll need to rebuild everything from the ground up. Dr. Kane proposed sharing human technology freely with all Alliance members. Our weapons and engineering advances should benefit everyone, not just humanity. That's how we prove we're different. From the Council, the trial reached its climax when Prime Counselor Varthek took the stand in his own defense. The alien showed no remorse for his actions and seemed genuinely confused by the accusations against him. We brought order to a chaotic galaxy, Varthek declared. Inferior species needed strong guidance to prevent them from destroying themselves. Earth was becoming a threat that had to be eliminated. Helen Davis cross-examined the former leader with surgical precision. You call the destruction of 8 billion humans guidance? You consider genocide a form of public service? The weak must serve the strong, Varthek replied without emotion. This is the natural order of the universe. Humans were too aggressive and had to be removed before they spread their violence to other worlds. Jake felt rage burning in his chest as he listened to the alien's cold justifications. This creature had ordered the murder of everyone Jake had ever loved and felt no guilt about it whatsoever. The prosecution's final argument lasted 3 days. Helen presented evidence that the Council's crimes exceeded anything in galactic history. They killed not from passion or desperation, but from cold calculation. They turned murder into policy and genocide into routine administration. The defense's closing argument was brief and unconvincing. They had no real way to justify the overwhelming evidence against their clients. The best they could do was argue for mercy based on the defendant's advanced age. The judges deliberated for only 6 hours before returning with their verdict. Representatives from 200 species voted unanimously to convict all defendants on charges of genocide, crimes against sentience, and violations of natural law. The sentences were harsh but fair. Varthek and his co-conspirators would spend the rest of their lives in prison, serving the species they had oppressed. Their wealth would be distributed to survivor communities and reconstruction efforts. Jake felt justice had been served, but the trials were only the beginning. Now came the harder task of building a government that would prevent such horrors from ever happening again. The new United Species Alliance was formally established 1 month after the verdicts. Unlike the old council, this government would be based on democratic principles and species equality. Every member world would have representation proportional to their population. We gather not as conquerors, but as partners, Jake said during his inaugural address as the Alliance's first president. We've seen what happens when power is concentrated in the hands of the few. Our new government will be accountable to all its citizens. The Alliance's first act was to establish the Genocide Prevention Protocol. Any species that showed signs of becoming aggressive toward others would face intervention from the combined Alliance fleet. Never again would innocents die while others stood by and watched. Dr. Kane was appointed as the Alliance's science director with a mandate to share human technology with all member species. Within months, alien worlds were benefiting from human medical advances, engineering techniques, and defensive systems. Colonel Barnes became the first commander of Alliance Defense Forces. Her job was to protect member worlds, while ensuring that the military never became a tool of oppression like the old Council forces. As Jake stood in his office looking out at the rebuilt capital city, he reflected on how far humanity had come. They had started as victims of genocide and become the leaders of galactic civilization. The responsibility was enormous, but he was determined not to let power corrupt them as it had the Council. The galaxy was finally free, but freedom required constant vigilance to maintain. The humans and their allies would need to remain strong enough to defend themselves while resisting the temptation to become the tyrants they had fought to overthrow. 5 years had passed since the fall of the Galactic Council. Admiral Morrison, now president of the United Species Alliance, stood on the observation deck of the UES Phoenix watching construction crews put the finishing touches on New Earth. The artificial planet hung in space like a jewel, its continents shaped to honor every species in the Alliance. Dr. Lisa Kane approached with the latest progress reports. She had been leading the New Earth project since its inception, determined to create something that would symbolize hope for the entire galaxy. "The atmospheric processors are online," she announced with satisfaction. "We can begin introducing plant life next month." The planet was more than just a replacement for humanity's lost homeworld. It was designed as a living monument to freedom and cooperation. Each continent represented a different Alliance species, with cities built using their architectural styles and environmental preferences. Chief Engineer Danny Sullivan had overseen the massive construction effort. "We've completed the residential districts for 47 species," he reported. "The Vex High Hive complexes are particularly impressive. The Netheron Crystal Gardens should be ready for their first inhabitants next week." Jake felt pride watching. Alien families move into their new homes. Children of different species played together in parks designed by human architects and alien engineers working as partners. It was exactly what he had hoped to achieve when the Alliance was formed. Captain Amy Foster, now Admiral Foster and head of Alliance Intelligence, brought news from across the galaxy. "The latest census shows membership has grown to over 400 species," she reported. "Even some former Council loyalists are requesting to join." But not everyone was happy with the new order. Reports came in regularly about Council remnants hiding in the galactic core. These die-hard supporters of the old regime refused to accept that their time was over. They called themselves the True Council and claimed the Alliance was a human plot to dominate the galaxy. Colonel Kate Barnes, now General Barnes and commander of Alliance Defense Forces, tracked these holdout groups carefully. "Intelligence suggests they're building a fleet in the unexplored regions beyond the galactic center," she warned during a security briefing. "Their leader is Counselor Drexhun, one of the few original council members who escaped capture." Jake sighed as he reviewed the intelligence reports. "How many ships do they have?" "Maybe 200, mostly older vessels crewed by species still loyal to the Council ideology," Kate replied. "They're not strong enough to threaten major Alliance worlds, but they could cause serious damage to outlying colonies." Dr. Kane had been analyzing intercepted Council communications. "They're spreading propaganda claiming that humans are the real threat to galactic peace," she explained. "Some species are starting to believe it, especially those who never suffered under Council rule." The challenge facing the Alliance was proving that they were different from their predecessors. Every decision Jake made was scrutinized by critics looking for signs that humans were becoming the new tyrants. It was a delicate balance between maintaining security and preserving freedom. Trevor Hill, now Alliance Weapons Development Director, brought disturbing news about Council technology. "They've developed some kind of biological weapon," he reported. "Intelligence suggests it targets human genetic markers specifically. They're planning to finish what they started at Earth." Jake felt cold fear grip his heart. "Can they deploy it effectively?" "If they get close enough to major population centers, yes," Trevor replied grimly. "The weapon is designed to spread through air and water systems. It could kill millions before we even know it's been released." The threat forced Jake to make one of the hardest decisions of his presidency. The Alliance would need to launch a preemptive strike against the Council remnants before they could use their biological weapon. It went against everything the Alliance stood for. but sometimes freedom required difficult choices. "General Barnes, prepare Operation Final Dawn," Jake ordered reluctantly. "We end this threat once and for all." Kate's face showed she understood the necessity, but didn't like it any better than Jake did. "I'll need at least 50 ships and full authorization to enter unexplored space. This won't be a simple police action." Dr. Kane volunteered to develop countermeasures for the biological weapon. "If we can create an antidote, we might be able to protect our people even if some of the weapon is deployed." The preparation for Operation Final Dawn took 3 months. Alliance ships were modified with the latest human technology and crewed by volunteers from dozens of species. Everyone understood that this might be the last major battle of the war that had started with Earth's destruction. Commander Phillips, now Captain Phillips and Jake's most trusted field operative, led the advanced scouts into unexplored space. His mission was to locate the Council remnant fleet and gather intelligence about their capabilities. "Sir, we've found them," Phillips reported from deep space. "They've established a major base around a red giant star in the Terminus sector. I count over 300 ships, including some new construction." The Council remnants had been busy during their exile. Intelligence photos showed massive shipyards and weapon factories built into asteroids around their hidden base. They were preparing for more than just biological warfare. "They have enough firepower to threaten several Alliance worlds simultaneously," Kate observed during the final mission briefing. "If we don't stop them here, they could launch a coordinated attack that kills millions." Jake addressed the Alliance Defense Force before they departed for battle. "You carry with you the hopes of 400 species," he told the assembled crews. "You fight not for conquest, but for protection. You fight so that no world will ever again suffer what Earth endured." The Battle of Terminus was unlike anything the Alliance had fought before. The Council remnants fought with desperate fury, knowing this was their last chance to restore their vision of galactic order. Their ships were older, but their crews were experienced veterans who remembered the glory days of Council rule. General Barnes led the assault with tactical brilliance that would have made Nick Turner proud. Alliance ships used superior technology and coordinated tactics to overcome the enemy's numerical advantage. Human innovations like ghost drives and quantum torpedoes proved decisive in the fighting. The battle raged for 2 days across multiple star systems. When it ended, the Council remnant fleet was scattered and broken. Councillor Drexhun died aboard his flagship as Alliance Marines stormed the bridge. The last organized resistance to the new galactic order had been crushed. But victory came at a cost that reminded everyone why war should always be a last resort. The Alliance lost 23 ships and over 4,000 personnel in the fighting. Each death was mourned not just by their own species, but by the entire Alliance community. Jake stood in the memorial garden on New Earth, reading the names of the fallen. They had died to protect the freedom that humanity and their allies had built from the ashes of tyranny. Their sacrifice would not be forgotten. Dr. Kane approached with news that lifted his spirits slightly. "The biological weapon has been completely neutralized," she reported. "We've developed not just an antidote, but a permanent immunity that we can share with all Alliance species." The threat was finally over. The galaxy was truly free for the first time in thousands of years. But Jake knew that freedom was never permanent. Each generation would need to defend it against those who preferred the old ways of fear and domination. Ambassador Chen, one of the few human survivors from Earth who had become a diplomat, brought the final reports from across the galaxy. "Every major species has now joined the Alliance," she announced. "Even the isolationist Shard Collective has agreed to limited membership." Jake looked out at New Earth's cities, where millions of beings from hundreds of worlds lived and worked together, in peace. Children who had never known oppression played in parks where their parents had once been slaves. It was the future he had dreamed of during those dark days hiding in the Kepler Nebula. Humanity had risen from the ashes of genocide to become the guardians of galactic civilization. They had proven that strength could be used to protect, rather. than oppress, that different species could work together as equals, and that even the darkest tragedy could give birth to hope. The phoenix had risen from the fire, and its wings now sheltered an entire galaxy. 10 years after the destruction of Earth, President Morrison stood before the Alliance Assembly, delivering his final address before stepping down from office. The Great Hall buzzed with representatives from over 500 species, all gathered on New Earth to witness the peaceful transfer of power that had become a cornerstone of their democracy. "My fellow citizens of the galaxy," Jake began, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall and broadcast to billions of beings across thousands of worlds. "When I first took this office, I promised that humanity would never become what we fought to destroy. Today, I believe we have kept that promise." Dr. Lisa Kane sat in the front row watching her old friend with pride. She had been elected as Jake's successor by an overwhelming majority, representing not just human interests, but the scientific community of the entire Alliance. Her first act as president would be launching the Great Exploration Project to map unknown regions of the galaxy. Qatar. Transformation of galactic civilization over the past decade had exceeded everyone's wildest dreams. Where the Council had ruled through fear, the Alliance governed through cooperation. Where the old regime had exploited the weak, the new order protected them. Where tyrants had once divided species against each other, democracy now united them, in common purpose. Admiral Foster brought the latest expansion reports to the podium. "This year alone, we welcomed 47 new member species to the Alliance," she announced. "Our peacekeeping forces have helped resolve 32 territorial disputes without a single shot being fired. General Barnes stood to address military matters. The Alliance Defense Force now includes personnel from over 200 species," she reported. "Our mission remains unchanged: protect the innocent and prevent any group from gaining enough power to threaten galactic peace." But the greatest achievement was visible outside the Assembly Hall windows. New Earth had become a shining example of what different species could accomplish when working together. The planet's cities blended architectural styles from across the galaxy into something beautiful and unique. Chief Engineer Sullivan had supervised the construction of the orbital ring that now surrounded New Earth. The massive structure housed millions of beings and served as the hub for interstellar trade and communication. Ships from the farthest reaches of the galaxy docked there daily, bringing goods and ideas from countless worlds. Jake's thoughts turned to those who hadn't lived to see this day. Nick Turner, who had sacrificed himself at Kepler Nebula. Alex Murphy, who died destroying the Council's superfortress. The thousands of other humans and aliens who had given their lives for freedom. They deserved to be remembered. "We dedicate this memorial to all who fell in the struggle for galactic liberation," Jake said as he unveiled a new monument in the center of New Earth's capital. The crystal structure bore the names of every known victim of the war, human and alien alike. Their sacrifice purchased the freedom we enjoy today. President-elect Kane took the podium for her inaugural address. "My fellow beings, we stand at the threshold of a new age," she began. "The Great Exploration Project will extend Alliance protection to uncharted regions of the galaxy. No species will face extinction alone. No world will suffer oppression in silence." The crowd erupted in cheers from hundreds of different species. The sound was like music to Jake's ears. This was what he had dreamed of during those dark days after Earth's fall. A galaxy where diversity was celebrated instead of feared, where cooperation replaced domination. Captain Phillips, now Admiral Phillips, and head of Alliance Exploration Command, outlined the ambitious plans for mapping unknown space. "Our survey ships will venture beyond the galactic rim itself," he announced. "We may find new forms of life that challenge everything we think we know about the universe." Dr. Kane had proposed establishing research stations in each unexplored region. "Science belongs to all sapient beings," she declared. Every discovery will be shared freely among Alliance members. Knowledge hoarded is knowledge wasted. Trevor Hill had developed new ship designs specifically for long-range exploration. These vessels can operate independently for years while maintaining contact with Alliance space, he explained. They carry diplomats, scientists, and peacekeepers ready to make first contact with whatever we might find. The exploration fleets would launch within months, carrying the Alliance banner to stars that had never known galactic civilization. Each ship would be crewed by multiple species working together as equals, showing the universe what unity could accomplish. Jake watched the ceremony with mixed emotions. Part of him was proud of what they had built, but another part worried about the future. Power had a way of corrupting even the best intentions. Would the Alliance remain true to its principles as it grew larger and more influential? Ambassador Chen brought encouraging news from the frontier regions. Former Council loyalists in the outer systems are requesting Alliance membership, she reported. They've seen the prosperity our worlds enjoy and want to be part of it. The peaceful integration of former enemies had been one of the Alliance's greatest successes. Instead of seeking revenge, they had offered redemption to those willing to embrace democratic values. Many former Council species had become some of the Alliance's most dedicated supporters. General Barnes addressed concerns about security in the expanding Alliance. Our forces remain strong enough to deter any potential aggressor, she assured the Assembly. But we use that strength to protect, not to conquer. The Alliance will never become what we fought to destroy. The memorial service for Earth was held the next day. Representatives from every Alliance species gathered to honor the 8 billion humans who had died in the Council's attack. The ceremony had become an annual reminder of why freedom required constant vigilance. Jake placed a wreath of flowers from New Earth at the base of the memorial wall. Each bloom represented a different Alliance species, united in remembrance of humanity's sacrifice. They died so that others might live free, he said simply. Dr. Kane announced her first major initiative as president. The Alliance Academy will open next year on New Earth, she declared. Young beings from every member species will study together, learning not just science and technology, but the values that keep our democracy strong. The Academy would ensure that future generations understood the price of freedom and the importance of protecting it. Children who had never known oppression would learn about the dark days of Council rule and humanity's struggle for survival. As the ceremonies concluded, Jake took one last walk through New Earth's Memorial Park. The artificial sun was setting, painting the sky in colors that reminded him of Earth's sunsets. Children of a dozen different species played together on the grass, their laughter echoing across the peaceful landscape. A young Vexhai approached him shyly. She had been born on New Earth and knew no other home. President Morrison, she clicked. In her native language, my teacher says you knew the old Earth. What was it like? Jake knelt down to her level, remembering another child who had asked him the same question years ago. It was beautiful, he said gently, but not as beautiful as what we've built here together. Admiral Foster joined him as the children ran, off to play. Any regrets about stepping down? She asked. Jake shook his head. Democracy means knowing when to let others lead. Besides, I want to see what's out there beyond the rim. Maybe there are species that need our help. They stood together, watching the stars appear in New Earth's twilight sky. Somewhere out there, exploration ships were carrying the Alliance message to unknown worlds. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders yet to be discovered. Do you think we'll find other species like the Council? Amy asked. Others who believe in rule by force? Probably, Jake replied honestly. But we'll be ready for them, and maybe we can show them a better way. The phoenix that had risen from Earth's ashes now spread its wings across the entire galaxy. Humanity had learned that true strength came not from dominating others, but from lifting them up. The alliance they had built would endure because it was founded on principles that honored the dignity of all sapient life. As the first stars appeared overhead, Jake made a silent promise to the children playing in the park. They would inherit a galaxy where freedom was the birthright of every thinking being, where diversity was celebrated, and where the mistakes of the past would never be repeated. The legacy of Earth lived on in the laughter of alien children playing under foreign stars.